Namaste yogis, this is Stephen from YogaWorks. Welcome to your practice. In the next little mini-series, I want to offer a couple of techniques to improve our flexibility. The first one we're going to address in this session is the hamstrings. It's one of the most obvious ones. When you bend forward, some people are just almost like flat on their legs or on their thighs. And other people just seem to be nowhere close to the floor or to your toes or whichever measurement that you're using. So it's a very visible part of our flexibility. There's a few things I want to say before we start this work though. The first one is that flexibility is not the whole story. It is nice to have a good range of motion, but we need to also have a measure of strength and control in that range of motion. So the combination of those two we call mobility. Today is a bit more focused on the flexibility side, so increasing that range of motion. The second thing is that hamstrings or all other muscles in the body, they don't function in isolation. There's always a whole chain of muscles that are working together or that are opposing the action on the other side. And we cannot disconnect this, so whenever we work on hamstring, we'll automatically be touching on the lower back, on the calves. We'll have to activate the front of the thighs, the quads, the hip flexors to get that length in the back. So just think of it as a chain of muscles, even if the title of this class is to focus on the hamstrings. And then the next thing is that the flexibility or a range of motion is going to depend on a whole range of factors. It's not that one muscle that we have to beat into submission by stretching and stretching. There's also a whole lot of connective tissue. It's called the fascia, which includes the tendons and the ligaments in the joints, and by which the muscles connect to different body parts. And it's also connected to your proportions. Say if you have relatively long legs and a shorter torso and arms, it's going to be harder for you to reach for your toes, for example. And we need to accept that part because we can't change it. Also, it has to do with your joint structure. So some of these movements may just not be physically possible with your joint structure. So just, I guess the moral of the story is there's probably a lot of improvements we can make, but it's not all up to us. So we're just sort of working with the parts that are within our control. The last thing I want to share is that this flexibility work takes a lot of time. It's not going to be sorted in one single session. Suddenly your hamstrings will be all open. You'll feel some benefits now, but a lot of benefits will come by coming back to this work very regularly and just showing up for your practice. If you know that you're a little bit more restricted in the hamstrings, I would really recommend to have 2 blocks ready or something else that you can lean on. Let's start in ragdoll. So I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see. I'm placing my feet about hip distance apart. I'm keeping a bend in the knees. This is important. Keep the bend in the knees, a good bend. And then just fold forward with your upper body over the thighs. And I like to hold opposite elbows here. But if you prefer, you can also have the hands, the back of the hands on the mat. Don't be tempted to start pulling with your hands, definitely not in this first pose. And don't focus so much on how deep you get or what this pose looks like, but just get like a nice introductory sensation in the hamstrings. And you might even bend the knees so much that your torso is actually resting on the thighs, so you feel the belly, the chest connect. That's a good thing. I would recommend to feel that. And this is also a great pose to start to feel into your grounding through the feet. So you can feel how much weight is in the toes, how much weight is in the heels. And just play with this. If you lean a little bit forward, what happens? If you lean a little bit back, how does that feel? And even side to side, what if you rock a little bit into the left foot and into the right foot? Just play with this balance for a moment. And then just be still in the middle point. Let your head just hang from the end of the spine. And let your arms and shoulders relax completely.
Just imagine the spine, the torso gently lengthening away from the hips. And as it were, it's actually tilting the pelvis forward and lengthening the hamstrings at the back of the thighs. You'll feel that. And now this first one, we're not using any muscular action. The less you do, the better. So just do the bare minimum to just stay here for a little bit longer. Working with the breath from the inside out. Of course, our hamstrings, we sit on them for large amounts of time in the day. So it's really nice to give them a little bit of positive attention and also not to go in too strongly straight from the beginning. This is a great pose to invite some length without forcing anything. I would recommend to do this often. And then just place your hands and step back to downward facing dog. And as you get to down dog, start to pedal out the feet, so you're walking the legs out one by one. As I stretch one heel down, I'm straightening that leg and bend the other knee. And then alternate. And you'll probably feel that leg that's straight, and you can really push that heel down and get into the calf and the hamstring, the whole back of the leg, that way. Just notice that for a moment. And then come into stillness. And as we're working in hamstrings, we are going to keep the knees straight here. And if you can, even lift the toes up. So squeeze the toes towards your shins. Whether they actually lift or not is not so important. And then see if you can press or lengthen the heels down towards the mat. They may not touch. They might be miles away from the mat, which is okay. And then use your quads. You can even poke your quads to really activate and push the back of the knee back behind you. And then press the hands down, lift the hips up and back, and feel how this lifts the sit bones to which the hamstrings are attached at the top. And then this is how we really turbocharge the down dog to get more of a hamstring and calf stretch, so the whole backs of the legs were getting here. Last 3, 2, 1. Step your right foot forward. Lower the left knee down. And then just move your left knee a little bit further back and pull your right hip back a little bit. And this is where you might need the blocks if you need to lift your hands up a little bit higher to increase this angle with the torso, then I would definitely recommend that. And then wherever you are, bend your right knee. It feels like we're going to get a better stretch with the knee straight, but it's not always the case, so trust me on this. Bend your right knee. With your belly, even come a little bit closer to that right thigh if there's space. And then keep the right foot active, so I'm actively pulling the toes up towards the face. And then lengthen that right hip back. And then just feel, we should always feel this hamstring stretch in the belly of the muscle, so between the knee and the hip. So we shouldn't feel a sharp pain behind the back of the knee. And also not close to the sit bone, so we want to aim for the middle of the back of the thigh there. So just feel that. And just play with the intensity and just marinate in that spot for a moment. Then we'll do a couple of activations. The first one is to press the right heel down and to create the action of pulling it back towards the back of the mat. So that actually activates the hamstring while we're keeping it in a lengthened position. It's a really good way to stretch and to lengthen. So keep that as you push the right heel down and you create the action of dragging it back. It doesn't go anywhere because it's stuck on the sticky mat. And then we'll do the opposite one, which is fingertips down. Straighten the right knee now, pull up the right toes, and then push down so hard, you're activating the tissues at the front of the leg here to lift the right foot. If it doesn't lift up much or not at all, that's fine, but just create that action of making the foot lighter. 3, 2, 1. Place the foot back down. And now gently, keeping the legs straight this time, rock side to side. We've got 3 hamstrings. So the hamstrings are a group of 3 muscles at the back of the legs. One is in the middle, and one is more to the outside, one is more to the inside. So when we do these rocking motions, we are sort of hitting the hamstrings at slightly different angles. And then we'll hold for another moment. If you want to make it slightly more intense, you can place the right hand to the outside of that right shin. I like to place hand on the right hip and turn the chest to the right a little bit. So now we're getting more into the outer hamstring, the outside of that thigh. And then slowly release. Step back to down dog. And repeat those activations that we have learned the first time in down dog. So we're pushing the ball of the foot down, we're lifting the toes up, and then we're stretching the heels down towards the mat as much as they go. They don't need to touch. It might happen. It might never happen. That's fine. Remember what we said about the structure of your body, your joints, your proportions. So all of this will play a role in addition to just purely the length of the muscle. And then engage the quads, so you're really lifting the kneecaps to press the backs of the knees back, lift the sit bones, and stretch the backs of the legs. Good. Step left foot forward, lower the right knee down. Place right knee a little bit further back, and then start to pull the hips back without straightening the left knee all the way. For some reason, we always tend to think straight is better than bent, straight is more advanced than bent. I wouldn't be so sure. So I would really recommend bend that left knee, even if it's just a micro bend. And then use your blocks if you need to be a little bit higher. There's no shame in this. It's actually going to improve the process of opening up if you allow yourself some of these modifications. Couple of breaths here. Again, we want to feel the stretch in the belly of the muscle, not behind the knee, and not at the insertion on the sit bone. So breathe into that spot. Most likely you've got a bit more of a flexible side and a bit more of a tighter side, which is quite normal. So just notice that difference, but don't pay too much attention to it. It will gradually even out a little bit more, without ever getting completely even, of course. And then keeping the left knee a little bit bent, push the left heel down and create the action of pulling it back towards your right knee. You can't see much when I do this, but I promise you'll be able to feel this because it intensifies the stretch while also activating the muscle that we are lengthening. So the hamstrings contracting, trying to pull the left heel back, and it's also lengthening. It's an eccentric contraction. It's a really great way to work. And what you can also do is hollow the belly back a little bit to create more length for the spine going forward. You don't need to round your spine excessively here. And then straighten up a little bit, especially with the chest. Straighten the left knee as best as you can. This is where you definitely might need a couple of blocks. So use those if you want to. And then I'm pulling the left toes up and I'm engaging the tissues at the front of that left leg and thigh and hip to make the foot a little bit lighter. Maybe hover the left foot above the mat. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Place your foot down and rebend the front knee. No, sorry, I forgot something. We're not quite done yet. There's the rocking side to side, so do that for a moment. Rocking side to side. Feeling the inner part, the outer part of the hamstring. And then optional, if you want, you could just stay here in the middle, or right hand over left shin and that left arm. You could reach it up, but I generally prefer to bring it to the hip, turning the chest a little bit to the left. Nice, and release. We're going to step forward to the front of the mat, and with your knees bent, lift one foot and slide your whole hand under it, all the way to your hip, to your wrist crease. And then lift the other foot, do the same with the other hand, and then push down with your toes a lot into the wrist crease. You want your whole hand under the foot. You can keep your knees bent as much as you need to, or if there's a little bit more space, you can start to push your feet down onto the hands and lift the sit bones up. And the effect might be that your knees straighten a little bit more, and maybe all the way even. If there's still space, you can always bend the elbows to the side, and in that way, from your hands, pull the back of the head or the crown of the head down towards your toes. Hollow your belly and create the space to fold into in the center. And then release this. Release your hands from under the feet. We'll do a second variation of this, which is called Padangusthasana, the hand to big toe pose. So bring the peace fingers to hold the big toes and just close that loop with your thumb. And then lengthen the spine forward. Try to even go into a little back bend. Just feel what a nice length that is for your hamstrings. And then you might need to bend your knees to do this, but it's going to be the same effect. So don't worry if you need to bend your knees a lot even. And then we're going to fold forward. You can do this with bent knees, elbows out to the side. Or you can start to push the big toes down, the feet down, to gradually lengthen the backs of the legs more. The effect might be that your legs straighten, but this is not the goal. We're creating length in the hamstrings, so you can do that with bent knees or straight legs. And then again, hollow your center. Use the breath. On the inhales, you feel the spine lengthens a little bit, just naturally. And on the exhales, you can soften and sink down into the sensation here. And then bend your knees and roll up to standing. Nice. From here, stand on your left foot. Lift your right knee up. So this is engaging the hip flexor, one of the antagonists to the hamstrings that we're working on. And then start to straighten the right leg. This is a hamstring stretch, but without any pull, any external force. The only external force is the opposing muscles, which is your quads and your hip flexors. 3, 2, 1. Place your right foot down, lift the left foot up. We swap legs because we just lengthen that right hamstring actively. I want to stay on the same leg in this little sequence. So for standing split, we're lifting the left leg high. And we're lengthening the right hamstring by folding over. This is one of those tough poses our mind sort of expect, when you hear split, you expect this leg to point straight up at the ceiling, but often not the case, definitely not for me and for most of my students. So just feel what happens when you fold over the right leg and you activate that top leg wherever it goes. It might be just off the floor, it might be all the way up, or for most people, somewhere in between. And then step back with your left leg and lift up. Nice. Now, actually, I would like to elevate the front foot a little bit. So if you've got a block, or you can even do this with a chair or couch in front of you, then that's fine. So we're going to do pyramid pose with the front heel on the block. So it's quite a short stance. Don't go too long. There's no need. And you'll notice that right heel, it needs to be a little bit elevated, but not so much actually.
Now keep the spine long, lift the chest, hands on hips, and now start to hinge from the hips, pressing that right foot down on that block. Hinge from the hips, so with your right hand, can you pull your own right hip back and just lean forward, forward, forward until you feel enough. Not until little tears are forming in your eyes, that would be a bit too far. But this work is intense. I wouldn't call it a walk in the park. If we want to get more flexible, well, like with everything that's worthwhile, we'll have to put in the work. So just feel the back of the right leg, again in the middle between the knee and the hip. Lengthen. In its own time, not when your busy mind wants it to happen and you're forcing things out of it. And slowly lift back up. Just shake your legs out for a moment. I'll keep the blocks nearby, we'll need them in a moment. And now place the weight onto your right foot. Lift the left knee, that's hip flexor, and then straighten the left leg, which is your quads. On the left leg, we're lengthening the left hamstring. Without external force, we're just using the antagonist muscles. Oops. And then stand up straight. Press that right foot down. 3, 2, 1. We're swapping legs. Left foot down. Right leg up and back. Hands can come down for balance, so you can use your blocks. And then activate that right leg. Stretch it up and back. And push down through the left leg at the same time. Folding forward, folding forward, folding forward. Again, hollowing the space around the belly, the abdomen, to create a space to fold into. Couple of breaths here in the standing split. And then step the right foot back. We're not too far. We're coming up. We'll need our little elevation again. Might be a chair, a couch, a couple of books, whatever you've got. And then the left heel goes on top. The right foot steps a little bit back. We're in a short stance. Hips face forward. This is close to the pyramid pose in yoga, but we're modifying it a little bit to get even better hamstring work. So the hips face forward, the spine stays long. I'm hinging from the hips. You can help with the hands just to feel that. Pull the left hip back with your left hand and hinge until you feel, okay, this is good. There's going to be no doubt in your body when you need to stop, when it's enough. You'll also feel when you go too far. You'll also feel when you're not pushing hard enough, when this has no effect. You want to find that midline. Again, hollowing the belly. Keep the chest quite long. We don't want to excessively round the spine. A little bit of rounding is okay. Push the left heel down. Engage the quad so your kneecap is lifted. And feel the space at the back of the left thigh. Good. Lift back up. Shake out the legs. And then you can place the blocks off to the side. If you need them, then keep them nearby. Right foot forward. Place the left knee down. This is a bit of a longer hold that we will use to stretch the hamstring. It's a little bit unusual as well. You'll see why in a moment. So first get into this, like a normal lunge with the back knee down, and place your torso, your belly, on the right thigh. We're going to keep this contact for most of this sequence. And then with your right arm or your forearm, go under that knee, squeeze it a little bit. You'll feel the tendons of the hamstring under the knee there. And if you like, I like to hold the left upper arm or shoulder with that hand just to keep it in place. Now what we're going to do is inch the right foot forward a little bit more. Inch, inch, inch.
And then engage your quad almost like you're kicking the front of your mat further forward. If you've got a slippery surface nearby, then you can use that. So we're not trying to straighten this leg, we're trying to activate the quad. So keep the knee a little bit bent, keep that arm under the knee, and keep your torso glued on that right thigh. It might mean you just don't go so far with that right leg, which is okay. So keep activating the right quad as if to slide that right heel further forward. But even if you don't move, that's fine. Stay here for a moment, just feel this. The more we engage the opposing muscle, in this case the quad, the more the body sends a signal to the other muscle on the other side, the hamstring, that it can relax safely. There's a solid structure. So we're using these built-in capabilities of our body. And then release the hamstring or the quad tension. And now we'll work on the bottom of the leg. Press the right heel down. And then pull the right heel towards you. And you'll feel the two outer hamstrings, the lateral one and the distal one, are going to engage here. They're trying to bend the knee, but the foot is stuck. So there's no actual movement. It's an isometric contraction. And then do one more thing. Press the right heel down and just feel that should activate the middle hamstring, the biceps femoris, a little bit more. So we're engaging those muscles in different ways. Slowly release. And swap legs. Left foot goes forward. Right knee goes back. First, don't go too long. Just place your torso on that left thigh just to feel that connection. This also helps with your proprioception, which means the body knows where you are and what's happening. It feels quite safe. And then left forearm, go under your knee. And if you like to hold onto your own right upper arm or shoulder, and just keep that connection, just feel how you can soften down. Relax the torso on the left thigh. Now we'll engage the left quad to wiggle the left foot forward. Don't think you need to go all the way straight. I wouldn't recommend it. So keep a good bend in that left knee and lift the toes a bit here. And engage your quad almost like you're trying to lift your left heel off the mat. But keep your torso, the belly, the chest glued to your left thigh. So if it doesn't look like me, if you need to be a little bit higher or lower, then that's okay. Keep engaging that hamstring for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Relax the quad. Keep this, but start to pull your left heel towards you. Start to pull the left heel back, which engages the two outer hamstrings, the outer one and the inner one. Feel that. You're trying to bend your knee, but your foot is stuck, so no movement is actually happening. 3, 2, 1. Release that. And now one more is to press the left heel down. Press it straight down. This is more the middle hamstring. See if you can become aware of these quite subtle differences and get to know your body way better. Slowly release that. And lie down. No, let's sit down first. Let's sit down with bent knees and feet out in front of you. Now fold over the thighs, bend your knees as much as you need to put your whole torso on the thighs again. We've done this a few times before. And it's a really nice way to stretch. Also, we don't feel like we're struggling to hold our feet. They're right here, just hold them. Feel that connection, your torso on the thighs. Gentle stretch in the hamstrings, but nothing too intense. And then keep this. Walk your hips back a little bit. Keep the torso on the thighs. Don't unglue the chest and the belly. And just stay here for a moment. Feel that? And with this one, you can stop at any time. If you feel like you have a little bit more space, you can still keep your torso glued to the thighs and walk further back, then you can do that now. Walk, 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 just shuffle, shuffle. Stay for a moment. And in this one, just relax the hamstrings. Relax the lower back. And then if you have some final wiggling that is possible while keeping the belly really close to the thighs, you can do that. For me, this is about the maximum before I need to remove the thighs away from the torso. And then finally, if you like, you can straighten the legs all the way. They might now come away from your belly, unless if you're super flexible. It's all good. You might be sitting straight up, which is also good. Press your hips back, press your feet into the hands, and lengthen the spine forward, forward, almost like you're trying to touch the top of your head to your toes. And release. Well done. Lie down on your back. We'll end with a supine exercise. Bend your right knee. And just interlace your hands behind the back of that knee. You'll feel the tendons of the hamstrings again on either side. And then lie back, straighten your left leg. Pull the left knee a little bit up towards the chest. Keep it here. And then a couple of times, straighten a little bit to the right leg. And then point the toes as you squeeze the calf onto your hands. Flex the foot as you straighten a bit. Point your toes as you bend your knee. Couple of times, flex the toes and straighten a bit. It doesn't have to be all the way straight. Point the toes, squeeze shut. 2 more. And actually, if you're shaking at some of these points, that's actually a really good sign that your muscles learning what their job actually is, and sometimes getting a little bit confused in the process, which is what the cramp is as well. Release that, straighten the right leg, bend the left knee. Hold, actually I don't like to interlace the fingers, it's a bit chunky as you bend the knees, so I prefer to just have the fingers touching in the middle. Pull the knee up to the chest a little bit. Flex your left foot. Straighten a bit. Point the left foot. Bend your left knee. For sort of flossing the muscles, but also the nerves that run through the back of that leg. The main one is the sciatic nerve. So we're lengthening and shortening it in different ways with these simple movements, and creating like a flossing effect to loosen everything up. 1 more. Nice. Slowly come up. Sit back. If you have time, do a short relaxation. Maybe just lie on your back, or you're nice and warm for your next yoga class, or maybe you've done this after a workout or a run, then you can combine as works best for you. I hope you feel a nice difference. You've learned something about effectively stretching the hamstrings, and also to, well, show up for your practice, but back off not wanting to do everything in the same session. Well done, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you here again soon. Namaste.